Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon. You have right here your for best explained ever test, and I went and put together right here are some examples right here. I was thinking about naming this activity mistakes. Talk about for best explained ever mistakes because I know if anybody were to be working on something or studying for something that they would maybe try to explain about any mistakes that could happen while they were being tested on something or while they were working on something. And by the time that after about maybe a few minutes, after about maybe half an hour or so, that they look back and look at their work, they look at their progress from about maybe an hour ago, something like that, and then the questions start remaining from there. But you see right here, I'm like, yeah, that you're talking about, for that true nations, though, that if anybody will warrant to where that, what does it usually mean whenever that, somebody wants the truth of the matter, and, talk about, for tests, though, and, I put together, some examples right here of like maybe some test results, and, some of us that may say is to where that while you're being tested on something that it's possible that you could make a mistake, an error, and so it's like besides pushing buttons, it could also maybe mean is to where that while you're working on something related to like InDesign or something like that you wrote like maybe if you were posting an ad, that there was an ad that you want to publish, maybe on the post, like you want to post an ad, maybe in the Tribune or something like that, and in the papers and anything online, and then you want to add maybe the job description and maybe for most ads that any source of contact information and maybe for anything related to about the job details, or maybe just if you're out looking for work or something like that. So you have right here, I'm like, yeah, that if anybody warns us that if you can zoom in right there, I'm like, well, I can go ahead and you'll try to, you go ahead and zoom in here just so that way people can, because I know this right here, I'm using Illustrator, but this right here would be my InDesign work. So while I was working on this, and I know that if anybody were to ask, is that, while you're going to be working with a few of the digital designing, programs that, such as InDesign, that you were working on something and then you were trying to save it in a certain file, and I was trying to save this as a JPEG, but then think about it to where just trying to work backwards as to a lot of times, because the illustration work is usually that you can save that to high resolution for a JPEG, or if it's a GIF file, but other than that, if you're going to be working with just InDesign, a lot of times it's like, most of it will be like the PDF files, and for PDF files, and if anybody will warrant to where that really what is the difference, and so that's just a thing that if you're going to be tested on anything and want to know about your PDF documents, that for any source of PDF documents that you're talking about, that the file could contain more than 4 pages, and if we're talking about maybe the constitutional test or the 3 basic rights, or maybe the Bill of Rights or something like that, we're talking about a test that includes about maybe over 10 pages of questions, and they basically say is that that just to be able to send a file by email or anything like that, that they would suggest is to where that create to convert to a PDF file, and then it's like so and then it would reduce the file size, and I know that which I've tried it before, that it would reduce the file size, and then it would not add up so much memory, and I don't know about about 50 or more pages. So if anybody warns us that if you're trying to send a file document, a PDF file document that contains more than 40 pages, what are the best results of sharing it with somebody or sending it to somebody, and that they may suggest, if anything, to send them a link by email, but still, they talk about for the best explained ever test, and so I want to mainly show everybody here about for digital design's passion understanding that the we about the work they do, and the software programs that they're based on the information and data that they have. That is convert it to electronic use, the tools that are used in the documentation as managed, especially by email. And this right here says the same thing. So this right InDesign work, and I'm not going to explain to anybody within about a minute that that I was trying to say this to a JPEG, but it's like I had to go back to like I had to copy and paste this into Illustrator just to go ahead and convert that to a JPEG and then update that on my portfolio. But talk about for best explain ever though that. You have right here that I have other documents, of course, right? I'm like, yeah, that if you say if you're going to be tested on something especially, and then you say, yeah, the teachers a lot of times that they may ask you, I'm like, you want to explain to yourself what's this all about, and I know that while I was in school, of course, that if anything that you want to share, and anything that's related to an assignment or something, or maybe anything that's related to your resume. That there could be what you call issues to where something that was not at all, if it was, if you want to call it maybe appropriate, or if it was recommended, or they don't need to see that, but still, if you're going to be working on a job resume or completing a review or an interview for a job, that they're going to be asking questions, and sometimes that we may feel that way to where that based on the information that we have now and compared to what we had back then, and sometimes that you by say that if you're going to be going through your files and then you find a lot of things, and you start showing them and maybe sharing with them a number of things too, and it seems like sometimes it's that yeah, that I don't care to see that, what I need to see. And so that's whenever if anybody say that, yeah, about the whole purpose about is toward it, besides true nations though that talk about what's mistakes though. And I know that for anybody that if while they're working on something, they may assume that something is going to be a mistake, over the fact, because one of those reasons could be is because yeah, that you were working on something, and let's just say if it don't fulfill the requirement, that you had to reread the instruction a number of times before, like, yeah, that yeah, you check the instructions and then you didn't quite understand something, and so you start working on something. And sometimes that seems to be a big difference. And I can tell anybody here that almost every day on a daily basis that while I'm working on something, it seems like it's to where that every time I read something, it seems like, yeah, you're quite used to being blamed for anything that goes wrong, to the point to where that it seems like a review or maybe like a little a second opinion or a third opinion is required each and every time. And I do get aggravated about that too. Like anybody who's going to be wondering about as to anything that you're going to be working on, anything that you're going to be tested on. And I know that, like with anybody that may say, is that, yeah, that, whenever you get hired onto a job and then they give you the work, and then sometimes that you may say that, hey, this is a mistake. Mike, I didn't. I didn't apply for this job, or so there may be a number of concerns in the matter. But I guess the question could go by as to where if it's a mistake, or if it is to where that yeah, that maybe that they want you to maybe learn something new. And sometimes though that just to learn something new, just to test you, and they might assign something, and they may say as to where I'll explain later on. But as of right now, just do your best. And so. That's just a thing about us to where with me though, that for how we handle it to where about mistakes, because that most of us will probably know that yeah, that whenever you make mistakes, then the less chances are that you're going to be trusted. People are going to look at you as unprofessional. You want to show great progress each and every time, but sometimes it doesn't work. But talk about here for like any source. A mistake in the matter. And you have right here, the way I do this right here, yeah, the way I do this right here is to where if I were to be on red carpet, this is my Photoshop work right here. So if anybody warns, is that yeah, that's my Photoshop work right there. if I were to be what you call, I don't know if you want, it's like I call it red carpet just because that you know it. And I can maybe say something like, yeah, that if you want to look at, whenever you were in kindergarten, it was like the timeout chair. Put you in a timeout chair if you did something wrong, or maybe if you were misbehaving or something like that. And sometimes it really, what can you learn just by staring at the wall? I'm like, if you start acting up, acting inappropriately, and then you go sit in a timeout chair for a couple of minutes or so, a few seconds, and it's like, yeah, that what do you learn just by looking at the wall, or maybe just by sitting on the red carpet? Now, I don't know if they have anything like this. And nowadays, they're in school to where that if you misbehave or if you continue to mess up, especially on your grade reports, or maybe you didn't do very well on a test, then I don't know if they'll have anything such as like the red carpet. Red carpet to where you sit on the red carpet, but it's supposed to be what you call a place to where that yeah that you're placed in a separate group, and I don't know if anybody remembers learning their times table. There are multiplication tables, especially if you're going to be do long division problems or anything like that. Division problems to where that whenever you go to school that you're in a group of with about maybe 11 or 12 other kids, and then by the time you misbehave, or maybe by the time that you didn't do very well on the test scores or something like that, and then they may say, okay, go sit over there on the red carpet or something. Yeah, they go get it at the end of the line. And I know that if anybody remembers that some of those teachers would say that if you got an answer wrong, then they would tell you that you had to get at the end of the line or something. And I remember that one of the questions that they did ask me was, what is the capital? I'm like, that they asked you about the capitals of the city, capitals of the states, and the state capitals. And I know I got one of them wrong, and the teacher told me, get at the end of the line, or something like that. I'm like, they would punish their kids somehow. It's like, yeah, miss recess, or something like that, or maybe if it's that besides the red carpet, that they would have other sorts of punishments there in the classroom also, and for one of these punishments, or if we want to cause to where that for mistakes in a matter, and sometimes though that for any children that they may warrant to where that they may because I know whenever I was a kid that it seemed like to where that ever since I was in 5th and 6th grade, that there was like there was a form that they would whenever I was in the 4th grade, that they gave me a form to use just to be able to, they would give you points, like you would earn points just for good behavior. And I know that if anybody warns us that a lot of times that for kids who have good behavior, that they would earn points, just for doing your work and just for doing good on the test or something like that. And sometimes that for any kids, whenever they first start preschool or kindergarten, that they may run into these issues to where that for good behavior is going to give them good grades, like it's going to earn them points. And sometimes that it seems like to where that for any parents or guardians or anybody that whenever their kids that they don't do very well on a test, or that they could keep repeating the same mistake. And I just really think, though, is to where maybe that for anything about what you call lesson learn, and that's whenever that that comes to the point to where the teachers that you go to the teachers 5 years later, and thing is to where that I was not your favorite student. It's like you didn't like me at all. You were not pleased to have me in your class. And so sometimes that for any students that while that they're going to school, that they may think that way, to where that they are not appreciated, they don't feel a part of the class, member of the class, and they say they think something negative, such as is to where that I don't think I should be a part of the class, maybe the group or something like that, and so it goes by so far as saying, and I don't know about any other kids. It's like if they're going to be maybe in kindergarten, or if they're going to maybe be in the 8th grade, that that anything that's going to be showed on the grade in the grade book, that for, like, say, for knowing about for test results, and then for the better, that anything about what you call, not everybody's perfect, and you may have heard that before, to where not everybody's perfect. But I also, I can maybe talk for about 5 more minutes about this, but go to the next activity of this right here. Like, yeah, for true nations, and you have right here is with me right here an American flag. Anybody who could be listening, watching, and reading for true right here for Adobe Creative Cloud. And if anybody has not had these are basically the same ones, from the previous best explained ever activities, but you see right here is I want to go ahead and talk about the Creative Cloud right here to the Creative Cloud, and it's like, yeah, that whenever anybody who's going to be first introduced to it, and then for any Adobe programs, that they may say is to that they only know so much about it, and then maybe that, like with me though, that you're holding the American flag right here, and like have right here is like for talk about for buttons though, and but Roy, that for anybody, any student like me, that if they're going to be working on something, the first thing that they may think is toward it. Maybe if you're convenient using the access to the emails, or if it's anything about it toward any other source of Adobe programs, and one of those will be those concerns could be is toward it. Are you can you afford it? Are you capable of using it, and can you afford it? And some students, or anybody who's going to be using a license, to be able to use the programs, may warrant where can you afford this? Because I can tell anybody here that there are some programs, like I stated before, that that there are some Adobe programs. If you're going to have access to the cloud, you're talking about maybe up to $1,200 worth of programs. If you were to go to the store and buy the programs, you are talking about up to $500 just to have access to some of those Adobe programs. And it may seem like to where you just for 1 year, just to have access to those, that if you pay the amount in full, you're talking about up to $500. It is just for the program. And I don't know about, if anybody say, if we've done the calculations before about how much money that we spend on gas per year, how much have we done the calculations yet about that, about how much money we spend on gas compared to for the Creative Cloud? For anything about careers, and that's something we can think about too, is to how much money do we spend, how much money do we pay for gas, for gas for the car, like for any source of a fuel of the matter, like anything about gas prices, like how much money that we spend on at the pump, compared to it's like for anything that's affordable for the Creative Cloud. And if we would actually do the math right here, by say, yeah, if you would actually tell the truth about as to if you've done the calculations about how much money did you spend at the pump, and for wherever you go, so far as wheels goes, and if I've done the calculations that per year, I would probably say that because by every 2 weeks I spend about at least $20. So if we were to multiply that maybe times 130, we're talking about, I would probably say, about $370 a year is about how much money I spend on gas at the pump. About $370. And I don't know of anybody else's calculations, but I could probably say about $370 is about how much money that I spend per year at the pump just to be able to fill the car up with gas. And if anybody were to say that that seems like an awful lot of money, I'm like, yeah, $370. If you pay $370 in full just to be able to keep gas in the car all year long, if we were to do the math multiplication or the mathematical subtraction here, that if they say that, yeah, for True Nations, $370 a year, and then I say that, yeah, well, about how much money do you spend on insurance and maybe about the taxes, but still though, that talk about for Adobe program access right here, You see right here, yeah, that most of us have seen this from True Nations, but then this right here for Adobe Creative Cloud, and then go to the next page right here, and it talks about for Faith, and then for Google Plus, Google, and then Google Plus top up for Gmail. So the way we think about this is that for anything about testing, though, and it seems like to where that you've done something so many times to where it seems like to where it was all just for the fun. I'm like, yeah, you started out as toward it. You want to go ahead and work it to if it was supposed to be a job offer, like with anybody, that it could maybe be a long story too, is to where that you get an email, and then before you were introduced to like a Google Hangouts app, you just to be able to connect to other just to be able to make a phone call or two, or maybe just to be able to have a backup email or something like that, and think about source of buttons that you'll be able to sign into any source of accounts, but still that I guess you could say is toward it, yeah, that nowadays with technology, it seems like that has it come to advanced and then more common toward it, you can actually fit this technology in your pocket. And if anybody warns us that, would that be considered a mistake or not? Is toward it habit to where it becomes small enough to where you can fit in your pocket, and yeah, that and we warn to where that. Anything that can be fit that can fit in the pocket as well. That but then there's some that may not. Some may say that they believe, or if they don't believe, that it's not breakable. So let's just say that it fits in your pocket, yes. But then the next question is that is it unbreakable? I'm like, almost anything is going to break, and it's like you have a warranty, but still that how many of us are going to maybe ask that question, is it breakable? Can it break? I can, well, just like anything else can break. I'm like, yeah, it could break, but still, unless if you were to put a shield around it or something, but still that may be the next question, is oh yeah, is it waterproof or is it fireproof? And I mean, that's just a thing that if you're going to be fitting anything in your pocket, and then somebody may ask as to where really, I'm like, for what you believe in, but still that it goes in your pocket, but then the next question could be as to where, well, can it break? But still, anything about what you call test, though, is that for if anybody were warned toward it, if we're going to be tested on something, and it could also maybe be about for like IQ readings or something like that, and you say for best explained ever, and it may ask you a few questions, and anything about related to the accounts, and if there's going to be a security question, one of those security questions could be as to where that about what age how old were you whenever you were first introduced to where that let's just say if you seen an advertisement in the paper about maybe the Adobe Creative Cloud or something, and then you're trying to remember about from whenever you first heard about it, and some that may ask you, can you please share with us about how you found out about this, or how this account works? So can you please tell us some details about that? And so you have right here as an example right here of me, if I were to be maybe what you call sitting on a red carpet for like any sorts of mistakes, that yeah, and whenever you make a mistake, it seems like, but still that if anybody warns us that yeah, any sorts of advertisements, and for any sorts of advertisements that you may see advertised, and sometimes it's like, really, what did they tell us necessarily? And do they really bring up any warning signs, or maybe if it's anything about just to kind of get you an idea, or that I've seen a lot of times in the magazines, especially, and I can tell anybody here back whenever I was growing up that I've seen a lot of magazine advertisements, and quite a few of them, and yeah, I remember seeing in the magazines that something I've been wanting to have, and it was like, yeah, then it's that you just had the money just to be able to buy it, or something else that came to your attention too, and it's like, yeah, beside electronic stuff, maybe I was not too much clothing, but like video games and maybe television sets, stuff like that that I would see in those catalogs, advertisements, and then just think about it as to where that, for how much money it costs just to have it, and just to have access to the Creative Cloud too. So if anybody warns that that you're going to come up to those moments as to where that just to be able to have access to the cloud, and you're like, Warren, to where really, I'm like, can you afford it? And then you're like, well, since you graduated, and then so like have the just to be able to have the license just to be able to download and install those programs. And if anybody warns us toward it, if you do like the test is toward it, that test like besides Google Plus and then Google Drive or something like that, they would ask you about what's your definition for what you say about downloads, because anybody who's going to maybe be on mobile is going to maybe warn toward any pictures and paintings that they warn toward it. What does it usually mean to download something? And I'm sure most of us would, who are familiar and who are confident understanding a lot of stuff about the online nowadays, that they would know basically what it means is toward it that it's not it's not available right away on that device that you're using. So let's just say that if you're going to be downloading the file from a different network, then it basically it says is toward it that from how I can maybe explain it is toward it that there's like it's like a door. If you want to look at it, it's like a door that you open up the door, and before that you receive that file, that it needs to download first, and then go ahead and open it. So I guess it needs to be set. I guess it's like a delivery. If you say that you open the door and then the delivery comes through or something, so it's like no for download. It basically is to where that whenever you download something, that it's going to be delivered. But we're not talking about 3 or 4 business days. That we're talking about, if anything, within about 40 seconds, that the file is delivered, to be available to use on the mobile device, and then for anything about websites that you're accessing. So if I say that whenever you download something, be to receive it, and sometimes if they say there may be other definitions, but anyway, but talk about for download though. But you see right here, talk about for use of about being tested for something, and if anybody warns is that whenever you're tested on something, for say knowing about for what you believe in, knowing about for anything what we call for mistakes though. But you have right here I'm talking about is for for the Google Plus, and then you have let's see for Google let's see here, go to page 4, you go Google Plus right here, and anybody who's going to have a Google account, that it's not like a Google like Warren Tour, about how many of us would pronounce it that back whenever we were young kids and think is Tour, how would you what would you call it whenever you were a kid? You may pronounce it as Googa, Googa with an A instead of an E. Instead of Google, you called it maybe Googa, but and maybe taking off the L and then put an A right there for Googa, but Googa Plus, Googa Plus, Googa Plus, Googa Plus. But anyway, but with Google though, Google Plus, that when we were first introduced to that it may look like maybe something like a button right here. Anybody say that with button right here, and I'll go into I know from from the other activity talk about for buttons, so that if we were able to see that very clearly as to where buttons, and for anything about buttons though, and it seemed like to where that I had this hand right here to where click on the button, and then you would be able to have access for like it would be used just to be able to gain access to the information. And say if you want to go and move the button around just a little bit, I'm like, well, see that moves the page around, but that moves the page around. I'll go ahead and use the select tool right here, and then go ahead and move the button around a little bit. There we are. So this right here was supposed to be, let's just say this is supposed to be an example right here of a button right here. So if you click on that, and then You say you'll be directed to Sinai. Yeah, if we had anything like that, if we were to have something like that online, to where that we would be able to click on this button right here, and then just kind of move it over, just to show us toward it. Yeah, that whenever a button is active, and then yeah, you program the site to where you click on a button and it takes you to a different page, on the website, and it's like, yeah, well, how can we help you today, or something like that. And but still, that you got me for Google Plus, and if anybody were to have like a Google account, that you say, yeah, that you may use it for job research or for anything else, but for Adobe Creative Cloud, but yeah, right there's that. And then for True and then Cares, and for talk about for the best explained ever for tests though. And so that's just the thing about me, is to where that you for anything about what we call mistakes. And I know that one thing I did want to mention too is to where that if anybody were thinking about negative, is to where that that if they fail something, or that they didn't do so great, and then they get upset about it. And so we may have you know have been there, there in that situation, to where that something that you were working hard on, and then you were having those complicated times, and we may consider it a mistake, maybe because if you were to be first starting a job, and then it's like, yeah, that whenever you first start a job, and then you may have seen maybe a couple of errors, a couple of mistakes, and it seems like it's all kind of brought to you. It's like, for like, yeah, whenever you first start something, you may see about one or two mistakes. And you may need a second opinion, or maybe third opinion about something, about what mistakes we see. Do we see here? And so it seems like to where that you're trying to get somewhere, but then you're always going to find something wrong. And half the time you ask yourself that question, is to where you ask, is like, what did I do wrong? And so almost all the time I'm always going to run into problems. Almost all the time I'm going to run into problems, to the point to where I just thoroughly I get in the habit of checking something over and over. After about maybe an hour or two, or maybe after a few seconds, I check back, and just to see if everything went all right, and if it was handled all right. So it seems like that, yeah, that you get in the habit, but still, for what considers somebody like me as a professional, and say for trusted though, for talking for best explained ever test, and really that for besides test scores, and then knowing about the ability for what a student knows, and if anybody wants to say anything about what you call language, because that anybody out there that may want to where that they are trying to understand about what I'm talking about. And at the time, it seems like to where, what's the one thing that you're going to maybe tell them, if those who don't understand anything that I'm talking about. I have said, a couple times before, as to where it hasn't happened yet. I'm talking about stuff in the future, but then some that may warn, they're trying to understand about what I'm talking about here, or what I'm doing. And at the time, it just seems like, what, it was a mistake. Don't worry about it. It's none of your concern, or it's you know what, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal right now. And so sometimes we may have we may have been at those situations, to where about how to deal with it, how to manage it, and then for about how to fix it. Also, is it that if anybody were to be working on something, and thinking as toward it, while they were working on something, and then somebody else had seen that, and let's just say that yeah, that if they're going to be on mobile or on online, and I know that I was want to do another activity too, to talk about, is to talk about for Google connections, because if you're going to be on a laptop, or maybe on a Kindle, or maybe any source of e-reader, or maybe a smartphone, three or four different devices accessing the same account, and they're gonna, anybody that you're going to be connected to, and you want to share your screen with them, and they may start asking questions, and let's just say if it's for job reasons, and it seems like at the time that they look at something like this, And right now, it looks like, yeah, that they may say that right now all they really see is Matthew's post, the student's update from whenever he was in school. We don't see, for what your experience is, if you're capable of using programs, for anything about what you call it, your responsibility, any work experience, and then anything else that they may mention on a resume also about the school you went to, and as well as for the type of software or programming that you're confident of using. And so, like most Windows or Mac editions, that if you're confident of using those also. So a number of things that would be recommended to include on a resume. And so sometimes that you may find a number of mistakes that it seems like it's all testing your mind as to where that sometimes it seems like to where that while you're working on something and after 5 minutes that you notice something that's not going to be absolutely perfect. And sometimes you just kind of think, twice or maybe 3 times in a row as to where is it a good idea to go ahead and send this, to show somebody, and if it can be updated later on. And sometimes it seems like to where anything that you're going to be working on, it seems to be always a mistake, or it seems to be always a concern. And I guess for being a professional, it seems like to where that really is it better off that you notice these mistakes before somebody else does it. That way, oh, okay, well, this needs to be corrected, but still, that at the time, it seems like to where that, yeah, that anything that you're going to be doing or saying, it's like, yeah, but how many mistakes are you going to be allowed to make within a day or maybe within a month before that you are what you call, that they may say something like, before you are suspended or before that, yeah, you didn't get the promotion. Okay, well, there was a mistake. You didn't get that promotion because you didn't do very well, or you're not the type of person we're looking for, whichever it is, or yeah, that you don't have the qualifications, or reasons could maybe go on. But anyway, but top of best explained ever test, and like with anybody that for any test that if we're going to be taking any source of test, that it seems like to word it, and maybe if it's not all considered a mistake, maybe some of it could all just be what you call, like I said, a test, is toward it, anything that you may know. And like say, if you're going to be going to school, that you're in school to learn, and then if you're starting a job, that you're learning on a job. So it seems like anything that you're going to be doing, working on a daily basis, it seems like it's toward it, that it's not, there's going to be that situation to where, yeah, that whenever you may feel like you don't belong working in that career field just because that you keep repeating the same mistake, and then something that's not getting done like it should be. And sometimes that really says is that to where you may have messed up 12 times in a row, and you're like, yeah, I don't know about you. I don't know if I can handle this position. I can. This is a lot harder than what I thought it was, and so there may be anybody that may be wondering about that as to where that I don't know, I can't do this job because it's a lot harder than what I thought it was. And so sometimes though, that if anybody say if you're going to be working for, if you're going to have a job and keep a job for more than 5 years, and it's possible that there are some jobs out there that are quite complicated, and that complication is that just think about it, to where for just to kind of test the matters to where how much that you're able to handle. And for anybody that they say is to where that for anything about what you call the push of a button, or if it's about is to where pushing buttons online, anything about advertisements go, what considers you to be a trusted person, good worker, and anything relate to your test results. And I just really think though is toward it for how it's handled, and then for how you present it as well. Anything that you do on a daily basis, and you may think is towards something is a mistake, but let's just say that anything that's going to be what you call on it's like anything about job ad, or anything job description or something like that, and It's like, say, yeah, that whenever you first start a job, that you may set is toward that you apply for a job to only work part time, but then until that they needed you longer. So sometimes it seems like it's toward it all seems to be between a mistake and then a test. And so sometimes whenever we first start a job or we first start working on something just like this right here, is to where if I were to upload the wrong file or maybe be using the wrong file, is that considered a mistake? Or is it just because it's like, well, hey, that you had to work a little bit backwards whenever an idea came to your mind, and then you were using a certain program, and you had to go back, you had to work backwards, and do we call working backwards considered a mistake? We reversing the process. Do we call that mistake, or do we kind of call that as toward that? Test results as toward it. Yeah, well, it's well now but still that I guess the question could go by as to what's the best way of how to learn about anything about professional work, is to where if there's going to be so much data and so many projects going on within the same time, if you get distracted with something, especially, is to where that they may say is to where that this person, what you call main character Matthew, or what you call anything about him, to where if he can do all the work himself, or maybe if he may need some backup, or he may need some assistance. And like with me, that I can tell anybody here that for best explained ever, for test though, is that whenever you're going to be working on something, and just think about it as toward you created something, or you gave it a name, and think about it as toward it. Really, what is considered a mistake, for knowing about anybody say, yeah, for true nations, if you can tell us the truth about, is it a mistake or is it a test? And you may feel like saying it's both, but still, though, that from all the work that you're working on, especially, and it seems like to where you just want to tell them that, yeah, it was a mistake at one time, but then it was like being tested. And so that's just a thing, though, is to where that I usually use the word by phrases to where a test, because that anything that's related to, from the original plan and then for what came up later on. So let's just say that the situation goes by as to where that, from the original plan, and then something that went wrong from the original plan, possibly, yeah, was a mistake. But then anything that's going to be going fine from the original plan, but then something else came up, and it was like, it's being tested. But it seems like that there are many of other discussions to talk about that, between what's a mistake and what's a test. But still, that I use these examples right here because this is my Photoshop worker. I want to mainly use this right here. This right here looks like I'm using this as an example right here of a button right here. But this right here will be in high pixels, and if anybody warns us that if they don't see the difference right here about this button right here, it will be in high pixels. So if we were to be looking at this maybe on a program like Dreamweaver, that we would may likely see is toward that this image right here is kind of squashed in, but still, be for raising a for my Photoshop work, and then you have right here is my InDesign work. So anything that you're using these different file programs right here. This right here will be the JPEGs right here. This was originally a PDF file converted to JPEG. So these right here will be JPEGs. But still, that if anybody knows about this study about digital software for using these programs, and it seems like to where it really, I'm like, is it really easy to test about really easy to tell about what these files really are? I'm like, oh, okay, well, you can see it. It looks like, yeah, it looks like what you call just something that okay, Word program, or I'm trying to tell. And so sometimes it's really hard to tell about these files, because yeah, that if you were to open it up in another program, or maybe if you were to post it on a website, that you would maybe be able to tell if it's a JPEG, or if it's a GIF, or if it's a PNG type file, and then maybe if it's in high pixels. And we may not see the difference right now, maybe because that, yeah, the best explained ever basically means is to where that, for more information that you can go ahead and talk in discussions, or email the person, or anything like that. And I know, like with anybody, that they say that if you talk for even close to an hour about something, about if it's anything about documentations or anything related to buttons and buttons online or something like that. But talk about for tests though, for any test results, is that really about for test scores. And if it goes by to where if the test scores are above maybe a 70%, and then it's like the chance, like, yeah, you passed the test. Well, congratulations, you did very well. And so sometimes that if anybody say what is considered a mistake, and we may have heard that before, to where we all make mistakes, but about how many mistakes are we allowed to make within a certain time of the year. But still, though, that I guess you say knowing about for how that we are tested on for what we know about the work for what we do on a daily basis. And for anybody to say that, yeah, for what is considered professional and what is considered well done, is to where for how you can maybe talk about it. And say, yeah, you just speak up about it, and then try to fix for what the matter is wrong. But talk about right here for like the best explained ever for Matthew's post, a student update for whenever he was in school, and you have it here for Matthew's post. And then I changed the lettering right here, the font size right here, to where you have like these different letterings right here. But so if anybody warns us that looking at these files, and that they were used to create using another program, some of the Photoshop work right here. And if anybody warns us that, yeah, that that really, that a lot of the things that they just can't see right now, maybe because it's like, yep, well, see what happens further with it. Other than that, you did well on the test. But other than that, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.